Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the win, and we're back for another edition of Diablo 3. Today on the channel, we are taking a look at the Roland's Legacy set armor for the Crusader class. This is the last week of armors that we're covering, now that Season 22 is almost at the end, so are we on our journey of covering every armor for the season. So this is Roland's Legacy. It's called the Sweeper set. 2-piece bonus every use of Shield Bash, and Sweep Attack reduces the cooldown of your laws and defensive skills by 1 second. 4-piece increase the damage of Shield Bash and Sweep Attack by 17,500%, which is mostly what we're going to be abusing on the set. 6-piece bonus every use of Shield Bash, Sweep Attack. That hits an enemy grants 75% increased attack speed and 15% damage reduction for 8 seconds. To help make this even a little bit stronger, we are using the Flail of the Charge set. So the 2-piece set bonus, as you can see here, increased the duration of Steel Charge by 2 seconds, and on top of that, increases the amount of damage after you come out of a Steed Charge. To also help augment the set, we're going to be using the Flavor of Time. That way our pylons can be extended. We're going to be using Strongman Bracers just to get a little bit of knockback. To give this armor more damage output, we are going to be using Captain's Crimson set. Like always, Captain Crimson's splashable in just about everything. 2-piece bonus says 8,000 life per second, reduces cooldown of all skills by 20%, and the resources cost as well. 3-piece bonus, damage dealt is increased based on the amount of cooldown reduction that you have. We're also going to be using Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac and Ring of Royal Grandeur. You could swap Ring of Royal Grandeur for a conventional elements ring. It really depends on what you have. There will be a link in the description to the armor. These are the skills that we're going to be using. Iron Skin Flash. So that's going to give us a little bit more toughness. Haegrid's Champion, because we need to have a lot of defense since this is going to be an up-close and personal set. Condemn Vacuum, which it does have its help because it pulls enemies into you. Steed Charge, Draw, and Quarter. That way we can kind of pull enemies away from us. And these are the passives. Heavenly Strength. We're going to be using Indestructible. We're also going to be using Long Arm of the Law, since we're going to be using Laws of Valor. And we're going to be using Finery, because we have a lot of gems. Now, in our Kunai's Cube, we are going to be using Golden Fleece, but you can use the Furnace instead if you prefer that. We're going to be using Achilles Cuirass, and we're going to be playing a conventional elements. That could also be a Ring of Royal Grandeur. It depends on which ring you have that is better. So, for the purposes of this demonstration, we are going to be doing a Greater Rift 60, 65, and 70. This is a not fully optimized armor. In fact, I do not believe any of the pieces have been augmented with a legendary gem of yet. So this is basically a naked run. I want to show you how effective this armor can be when you're using it non-optimized. So this should be pretty fast. This is an armor where the only damage is coming from a Sweep Attack. That's the only thing really that is an attacking skill in this build. So, once you get into the Greater Rift, first thing you want to do is cast your Haegrid's Champion. Cast, if you can, your Iron Skin. It really depends. And then the other thing that you want to be doing is casting your Laws of Valor. Obviously, wait till you see a large area of mobs. And then you pretty much go to town using your Sweep Attack. Your Sweep Attack is going to be doing a tremendous amount of damage. This is really up close and personal, in your face type of action. And the fact that you can increase your speed means you could do pretty much just keep waving the Sweep Attack if something feels a bit more tanky. Now, to help with this armor set to do more damage, we are using Bane of the Stricken, because we are going to be attacking quite a bit. And when we get bigger, more tanky mobs, I should say, when you're attacking them multiple times, obviously Bane of the Stricken's damage modifier increases with every hit, which is why it's important to use that. We're also using Bane of the Trap, because although we're not using skills that impair our enemy, when you level up Bane of the Trap to level 25, it automatically will cast slow based on the gem's secondary ability, which is why we use Bane of the Trap. That's also why Bane of the Trap is so splashable and used as well. Now, for the third gem, you have the option of using Goak of Swiftness. You could use a Bane of the Powerful, but I would recommend Goak of Swiftness. That way, you can increase the amount of damage that you are dealing, thanks to the fact that you're running a Captain Crimson set on here as well. So you want to definitely increase the amount of cooldown reduction you have so that you can get more damage out of your Captain Crimson set and this armor set in particular. Now, when it comes to optimization of the actual armor, my recommendation would be on the helm. Get crit hit chance 6.0%. That is probably my recommendation, although some people might argue that crit hit damage is never, or crit hit chance is never a bad thing because critical hits deal more damage, and who does not want to deal more damage? Dealing more damage means you can clear things out faster. For your gloves, my recommendation would be crit hit chance 6.0% or 8.0% if you get a really good roll. Also, you want crit hit damage 50% because that is very important, again, to increase the amount of damage that you do when you deal critical hits. And since we're going to have this armor optimized that way, you should be able to do a ton of damage. As well, I would recommend, since we're attacking really fast, it never hurts to get attack speed on your gloves of, my recommendation, 8.0%, but a 7.0 or even a 6.0 that you get based on your roll is perfectly fine. As long as you get the attack speed on your gloves, and it's a stat, you know, that's one of the things you really are going to want to invest in, because it really helps, because this armor relies on attacking very fast with sweep attack, and based on the 6-piece bonus, you are going to be attacking pretty quickly anyway, so that will help out with the pain and stricken. So that's my recommendation for the gloves. On the chest, on the legs, on the pants are basically legs, and on the boots, my recommendation would be to try to get cooldown wherever you can on that, as well as the shoulders. Alternatively, anywhere that you can augment the amount of damage that your sweep attack is doing, definitely look into doing that. If not, really just focus on cooldown reduction. Ignore resource cost. You're not really going to be spending that much on your resources, since sweep attack really is the only thing that spends a lot of your resources, and that's putting it very mildly, because as you can see, swiping with sweep attack, we almost instantaneously get back whatever we swipe. So my recommendation, definitely go for cooldown reduction. That way you will make the strength of this armor even stronger based on Captain Crimson. But if you have a chance, you can augment sweep attack. Don't bother really augmenting anything else, because that's really the only thing that you attack with on this set, unless Steed Charge. But even Steed Charge, you don't need that, because the weapon and the shield that you're using already augment the damage that you're going to be doing with Steel Charge. As you saw there, we pretty much took out the Rift Guardian with 3 hits. I'm just going to augment gems randomly, then I'm just going to probably level up the gems, I should say, and then probably I'll use random gems to augment an armor, not this armor, another armor that we will be focusing on in Season 23 of Diablo. As I mentioned before, there's only 2 armors that I have to cover for Season 22 of Diablo 3, which I'm going to be covering on Wednesday as well as Friday, and that will officially finish the coverage for Season 22 of Diablo. However, if Season 23 doesn't start soon, I'm going to go back to some older armors that have had a lot of comments and a lot of views on them and cover them again, because there's been a lot of suggestions and also some criticism, which is not a bad thing, as well as, you know, construction criticism is never necessarily a bad thing, because it could definitely help augment armor. So this is a Greater Rift 65. Clear time is not going to change too much here. It's probably still going to be a 4 to 5 minute clear time, depending on how fast I can scout for the elite packs. Really, with this armor, what you really would like to do optimize-wise play is just kind of scout for elite packs and take those out, and then Steed Charge away from the litter mobs and just look for the next elite pack, and you would kill that elite pack, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to really do that because it's a Greater Rift 65, and it's just, I'm going to be able to take things out pretty much with one hit. And massacre bonuses are never necessarily a bad thing, because that is how you pretty much can farm for Paragon as well. So, but definitely what this armor does is it's just scouting for elite packs. In terms of playstyle, I will say, though, this is probably one of the more boring armors that you can play with. People are going to ask in the comments why I'm not using Shield Bash. Shield Bash is really not that good of an ability, no matter what particular ruin you pick with Shield Bash. It's not really going to help do anything as to taking out mobs quick. Sweep attack really is the better option. You could, if you wanted to, get rid of the Condemned Vacuum and use Shield Bash, but the problem with that is then you're going to have to change your Bracer to something that will augment the amount of damage that Shield Bash does. Then you would have to play with things in your Kanai's Cube a little bit to be able to change Shield Bash to get more damage. And it's really not worth it, because really you're better off powering up Sweep Attack, because Sweep Attack in general is always going to pretty much one-hit KO the majority of the enemies that you run into in a Greater Rift, as opposed to Shield Bash, where you may take quite a lot of hits just to be able to take down even some of the more simpler mods. And on top of that, Shield Bash, depending on the rune you pick, doesn't have that great of range really to be able to do too much. So I would recommend just ignoring Shield Bash altogether in Roland's Legacy and just going this particular build option, just investing in doing all your damage just through sweep attack. One thing I will note is that in Season 22 of Diablo 3, Roland's Legacy did get a buff. The 4-piece set bonus, where the amount of damage that you did with sweep attack and shield bash was increased. If I remember correctly, it used to be about 6,000 or 7,000, maybe even 8,000 damage that did. They increased it all the way up to 17,500. That was not the only armor that actually got that type of buff as well. If you look at some of the armors that we covered in this season, all of them are available on the playlist. Just look for Diablo 3 playlist. For Season 22, there was a lot. Like, Helltooth got the 17,500 increased damage that it did. Zunimasa, I should pronounce it, is the Witch Doctor set. Another one. That got a 17,500 boost. Roland's Legacy. Also, the Raiment of 1,000 Storms set got a 17,500 attack damage and modifier boost to it. Pretty much they gave that to every armor that was very underperforming. When it comes to Roland Legacy's particular place in the tier list, this is considered, ironically, the worst armor to use for the Crusader, just based on the fact that it is a slow build, as you can see here. You're not going to speed through Greater Rifts, even when you're doing a lot of damage. As you get higher up in the Greater Rifts, which is going to be a case in point when I start showing you Greater Rift 70 in a couple seconds, you're going to notice that it starts to lose a lot of speed, and it takes a lot longer to take out certain mobs, particularly the Rift Guardians, when you're not investing in augmentation. And when you're looking at our armor sets in Diablo 3 that are much better for the Crusaders, such as the Valor Satyr set, which uses Fist of Heavens and Heaven's Fury to basically zone enemies. That one performs extremely well. It does a lot more damage, and you don't have to invest as much augmentations in it to get high up in the Greater Rifts and higher up on the leaderboard. Another thing is, obviously, there's the various different Bombardment Crusaders that got buffs thanks to Season 22 that just perform a lot better, can tank a little bit better, and don't have to really rely too heavily on multiple attacks to clear Greater Rifts at significantly high rifts without, with a lot of augmentation. So there is that to definitely look into, as well. So really, Roland's would be considered the lowest tier, but I wouldn't really consider it an F tier armor. It is in my personal opinion, keep in mind this is my personal opinion, this is not like an official tier list, I would say it's somewhere between B to C, preferably higher up on the B side of things. But as you see, this is a Greater Rift 70, and this is where Roland's Legacy is going to significantly drop off. The reason it drops off in particular is, as you see here, it takes a significantly longer time to kill enemies when you have not augmented any legendary gems into the armor pieces. Even with Captain Crimson, it takes a lot more hits. Now, yeah, you have, in particular, Bane of the Stricken, which will allow you to do more damage. But look, some of these, even the low-end mobs, it takes quite a while just to take them out. I have to swipe my sweep attack more than once. So that whole sweeping aspect of this build, where you just sweep things away, kind of starts to lose a lot of favor. Another thing that you're going to notice is, even with Akarat's Champion, you're not really going to be that tanky of a build, because you're really just doing more damage than you are able to tank hits. You still have some speed still because of just Captain Crimson. If you were to go completely Roland, you're probably not even going to be able to do a Greater Rift 70. So that's kind of why this armor starts to lose favor, because look at this in particular. It's going to take me several hits to be able to take this out. It took like 5 hits swiping it to do that. So that's why it kind of loses favor. That's why it's kind of considered C to B. If you can't just look at it and it implode in terms of Greater Rift climbing, and particularly climbing the leaderboard, that's why it loses favor. If you're looking for something to really demolish Greater Rifts and just blow through things, my recommendations are, there's 2 recommendations. I would go Valor Satyr set if you like to attack from far. If you like up close and personal, I would take a look at the Bombardment Crusader build that I did using the Akarat's Champion. Alternatively, there is the Thorns of Invoker set, which also is a Bombardment build, but it is a bit more tanky, and it relies a bit more on Slash doing its damage, but both of those are suitable options. I would recommend Akarat's Champion or the armor of a con build, as it's put, for Bombardment Crusader a bit better, because that one is able to do a lot more damage. It's not as tanky, but the amount of damage that you are going to be distributing to mobs is just so significant that defense is really not going to play that pivotal of a factor until you get up into like greater of 130 range. So those would be my recommendations for that. Now, as for Season 23 of Diablo, as of this recording, there is still no official release date. The PTB had officially ended. They did do some modifications to the Gears of Dreadland set yet again, so now they've kind of decided that they weren't going to nerf the Gears of Dreadland armor, but they were going to nerf the amount of damage that and the amount of piercing that Hungering Arrow does. These changes are going to significantly alter, in my personal opinion, where Gears of Dreadland places in the tier list. That was pretty much the end-all be-all armors for the last 2 seasons. Just really, really powerful. Too powerful for its own good. And it's really boring because once you start spinning, that's it. You kind of guaranteed to KO everything. So they've modified how Hungering Arrow works. It doesn't pierce 4 times now. It pierces 2 times. It does, I believe it does a least amount of damage now. A lot less compared to what it did the last 2 seasons. So that's something that is getting tremendously nerfed, but it kind of is justified. Another armor that got nerfed is Mundanuga, because they changed how Grasping Demise works, which is the offhand that's always used and kind of abused with Mundanugu. So Mundanugu is probably not going to be as fast, but it's still going to be significantly powerful and probably one of the better Witch Doctor armor sets, thanks to still how splashable and how much damage you can output with Soul Harvest. But we'll have to really experiment in the beginning of Season 23 of Diablo to really give a significant opinion. And there's still changes that they could potentially make before the new season goes live, because even though they got the PTB feedback, that doesn't necessarily mean everything is etched in stone. Armors that are getting augmented and changed around. Firebird's Finery, which is a armor set that I've said and did a video ironically on in Season 22, needed to be completely reworked. Got reworked, so now it's like a Disintegrate set that still carries the whole Ignite thing, but they've changed it. It's a less complicated armor to use, so that looks like that's going to climb significantly higher on the Greater Rifts. It could have used a couple of new weapon legendaries and cube slots to be able to increase, you know, how much damage Disintegrate can do, but there's a couple of builds that are still potential. They did nerf, though, something with the Firebird Finery set, because there was already being splashed with Tal Raja, so it kind of changed the way some of the shenanigans. But Firebird is looking like it's going to be doing significantly better. I don't think it's going to, you know, gain favor or be better than something like Chateau d'Omvir or the Typhoon set in particular, but it's going to be able to climb significantly. Rothmon, pretty much mostly the same. However, they now have Bone Spirit damage, which does increase things for Land and Dead, so that's kind of cool. I'm looking forward to trying that out. As you saw there, this was a Greater of 70. Even still, with not being fully optimized, it still is a significantly high clear time, or low clear time, I should say. So probably looking at anywhere between, I would say, 5 minutes. Anywhere 5 minutes to 6 minutes is pretty good with a non-optimized armor going into Greater of 70. I would push a Greater of 75, but I know with this armor that it's going to take a lot longer, and there's not really necessity to show off this armor anymore. So pretty much for those who need 4 easy steps to do. When you get into the Greater Rift, cast your Akarat's Champion. Then you want to cast your Laws of Valor. You also want to cast your Iron Skin, I should say, and then start sweeping things. That was a really good clear time. 5 minutes and 20 seconds non-optimized. That would be Torment 15 difficulty. Torment 16, you're probably going to get a 6-minute clear time, maybe non-optimized, possibly 7-minute, depending on how good you are at dodging certain things. It also depends on a little bit of the RNG as to what the dungeon you're going to get. So this is pretty good. B-tier armor. I wouldn't necessarily say this is the one you should definitely use, but if this happens to be a armor that is the Haegrid's gift for Season 23 of Diablo, at least you already have your guide to follow through with. So, but when it comes to Season 23, those are some very interesting changes. Looking forward to Rothman and Firebird. I'm kind of intrigued to see what's going to happen now that Mundanugu and Gears of Dreadland got nerfed. Will people in Season 23 look to different options? Will they actually take out Hungering Arrow and try to find something else broken? It should be interesting the first couple of weeks of leaderboard placement as to what really players gravitate towards. And there's also some interesting stuff for solo play, as the followers got a complete rework, and now they get their own buffs and skills, and they've refined how their skills work and everything. So now the followers are not just like having an extra cosmetic. So definitely interested in trying that out in Season 23. Alright, guys, so that's going to do it. This was the Roland's Legacy set. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a like. And if you're not already, consider subscribing to the channel, as it helps the channel grow and is greatly appreciated by us.